On the first day in the 3rd month of the 11th year, the word of Adonai came to me. Human being, say to Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and to his hordes, whom are you like in your greatness? Like a shore, a cedar in the Lebanon. It had beautiful branches, dense foliage. Its tall crown surrounded by leafy boughs. The waters nourished it. The deep made it grow, sending its rivers round the place where it was planted, sending its streams to all the trees of the field. So it grew taller than any other tree. Its branches grew in numbers and spread far and wide, for it had plenty of water to make them grow. In its boughs all the birds in the air had their nests. Beneath its branches and the wild animals gave birth to their young, and all great nations lived in its shade. It was beautiful in its greatness and the length of its branches, because the roots went down with plenty of water. No cedar in God's garden was like it. No cypress tree could compare with its boughs. No chestnut tree could rival its branches. No tree in God's garden could match its beauty. I made it so beautiful with its many branches. All the trees of Eden, God's garden, envied it. Therefore, here is what Adonai Elohim says. Because you are so tall, because he has lifted his crown above the leafy boughs, because he has grown so arrogant about his height, I'm handing him over to the mightiest of nations, who will certainly deal with him as his wickedness deserves. I reject him. Foreigners, the most barbarous of the nations, will destroy him and leave him lying where he is. His branches will lie fallen on the mountains and in the valleys. His boughs will lie down, broken, and all the rivers of the land and all the peoples of the earth will withdraw from his shade and leave him. All the birds will settle in his fallen trunk, and all the wild animals will be on his branches. This is to warn all the trees growing near water not to grow so tall, nor to lift their crowns above the leafy boughs, and all that take up water not to reach up in their height. For they are all given over to death, to the depths of the underworld, along with human beings, with those who descend to the pit. Here is what Adonai Elohim says. On the day he descended to Sheol, I caused the abyss to mourn and cover itself for him. I held back its rivers so that its deep waters were stopped. I made the Lebanon mourn for him, and all the field trees withered because of him. At the sound of his fall, I made the nations shake. I hurled him down to Sheol with those who descended to the pit, all the trees of Eden, the pick of the best in Lebanon. All that take up water were consoled in the underworld. They were descended with him to Sheol, to those who were killed by the sword, to those who were his fighting arm, those among the nations who lived in his shade, which all the trees of Eden was your equal in glory and size. Yet you will be brought down to the underworld, along with the trees of Eden. You will lie there among the uncircumcised, with those who kill by the sword. This is Pharaoh and his hordes, says Adonai Elohim. On the first day of the 12th month of the 12th year, the word of Adonai came to me. Human being, raise a lament for Pharaoh, king of Egypt. Say to him, you compared yourself to a lion among the nations. In fact, you are more like a crocodile in the lakes. You burst out of your streams, churn the water with your feet, and foul their streams. So here is what Adonai Elohim says. With many nations assembled, I will spread your net over you, and they will haul you up in my dragnet. Then I will throw you on the shore, hurl you into an open field, make all the birds in the air settle on you, and let the animals of the whole earth eat their fill of you. I will leave your flesh on the mountains, and fill the valleys with your rotting carcass. I will drench the land in which you swim with your blood. As for the mountains, the waterways will be full of you. When I extinguish you, I will cover the sky and make its stars black. I will cover the sun with a cloud, and the moon will not give its light. All the shining lights in the sky I will darken above you. I will spread darkness over your land, says Adonai Elohim. I will anger many peoples. I bring your destroyed ones in among the nations, to countries you have not known. I will make many peoples aghast at you. Their kings will shudder in horror over you. I brandish my sword before them on the day of your downfall. They will tremble continuously, each man in fear of his life. For Adonai Elohim says this: the sword of King above all will come against you. With the swords of the warriors I will cause your hordes to fall. They are all the most barbarous of the nations, and they will shatter the glory of Egypt. All its hordes will be destroyed. I will destroy all her cattle besides her plentiful waters. No human foot will trouble them again, nor the hoof of any animal. Then I will make their water clear, and cause their streams to flow out like oil, says Adonai Elohim. When I make the land of Egypt a ruined waste, a land stripped of all its that filled it, when I strike all those who live there, they will know that I am Adonai. This is the lament that they will raise. The daughters of the nations will use it to mourn. They will chant it for Egypt and all its hordes, says Adonai Elohim. On the 15th day of the month of the 12th year, the word of Adonai came to me. Human being, wail for the hordes of Egypt. Send them with the daughters of the mighty nations down to the underworld, those who descend to the pit. Are you more beautiful than the others? Go down, lie with the uncircumcised dead. They will fall among those killed by the sword. She is given to the sword. Pull her down with her hordes. From the depths of the Sheol, mightiest warriors will speak of him, those who helped him. They went down, they lie still, the uncircumcised, killed by the sword. Ashur is there with her hordes. Their graves are all around them, all of them slain, killed by the sword. Their graves are in the deepest part of the pit. Her hordes are all around her grave. All of them slain, killed by the sword, those who terrorize the land of the living. Eliam is there, and her hordes are round her grave. All of them slain, killed by the sword. Descended uncircumcised to the underworld, those who terrorize the land of the living. They bear their shame together with those who descended to the pit. They have given her a bed among the slain with her hordes. Her graves are all around them. All of them uncircumcised, killed by the sword because they terrorized the land of the living. They bear their shame with those who descended to the pit. They are put among those who were slain. Meshech and Tuval with their horde is there. Her graves are all around them. All of them uncircumcised, killed by the sword because they terrorized the land of the living. They do not lie with their fallen warriors of the uncircumcised who descended to Sheol, with their weapons of war, their swords laid under their heads, their crimes upon their bones. Because these warriors terrorized the land of the living, but they will lie broken among the uncircumcised, with those who are killed by the sword. There is Edom, her kings and all her princes, who, despite all their power, lay with those who are killed by the sword, with the uncircumcised, with those who descend to the pit. There are all those princes of the north, all of them, and the Zidoni, who descended with the slain, ashamed of all the terror they caused by the power. They lie uncircumcised, with those killed by the sword, bearing their shame with those who descended the pit. All of these Pharaoh will see, and he will be consoled about his hordes. Pharaoh and all his army slain by the sword, says Adonai Elohim. For I have put my terror in the land of the living, and he will lie among the uncircumcised, with those killed by the sword, Pharaoh and all his hordes, says Adonai Elohim. The word of Adonai came to me. Human being, speak to your people. Say to them, suppose I bring the sword on a country, and the people of the country take one of their men and appoint him their watchman. Now if, upon seeing the sword coming against the country, he blows the shofar, warns the people, then the sword comes and takes away someone who heard the sound of the shofar but paid no attention to it, the responsibility for that person's death will be his own. He heard the shofar but paid no attention, so the responsibility for his death is on his own. Whereas if he had paid attention, he would have saved his life. But if the watchman sees the sword coming and does not blow the shofar, so that the people are not warned, and then the sword comes and takes any one of them, that one is indeed taken away in his guilt. But I will hold the watchman responsible for his death. Likewise, you human being, I have appointed you as a watchman for the house of Israel. Therefore, when you hear the word from my mouth, warn them from me. When I tell the wicked person, you will certainly die, you will fall, you will fail to speak and warn the wicked person to leave his way, then that wicked person will die guilty. I will hold you responsible for his death. On the other hand, if you warn the wicked person to turn from his way, and he doesn't turn from his way, he will still die guilty, but you will have saved your own life. Therefore you, human being, say to the house of Israel, you say, our crimes and sins are weighing us down. We're pining away because of them. How can we stay alive? Say to them, as I live, swears Adonai Elohim, I will take no pleasure in having the wicked person die, but in having the wicked person turn from his way and live. So repent. Turn from your evil ways. For why should you die, house of Israel? Next, you, human being, say to your people, the righteousness of the righteous person will not save him. Once he starts committing crimes, and likewise the wickedness of that wicked person will not cause him to fall once he turns from his wickedness. No, the righteous person cannot live by virtue of his former righteousness once he starts sinning. So if, after I tell a righteous person that he will surely live, he begins trusting in his own former righteousness and starts committing crimes, then none of his former righteous actions will be remembered. On the contrary, he will die for the evil deeds he has committed. Likewise, if, after I tell the wicked person, you must die, he turns from his sin and does what is lawful and right, if the wicked person restores pledged property and returns what he stole, so that he lives by the law, and gives his life and does not commit evil deeds, then he will live, he will not die. None of the sins he committed will be remembered against him. He has done what is lawful and right. He will surely live. Now, your people say, Adonai's way isn't fair. But it is their way, theirs, that isn't fair. When the righteous person turns away from his righteousness and commits wickedness, he will die because of it. When the wicked person turns from his wickedness and does what is right and lawful, he will live because of it. Yet you say, Adonai's way isn't fair. House of Israel, I will judge each of you according to his ways. In the 12th year of exile, the 5th day in the 10th month, a fugitive from Jerusalem came to me with news. The city has been struck. Now the hand of Adonai had been on me that evening before the fugitive arrived. He had opened my mouth prior to his coming, and to me in the morning, so my mouth was open, and I was no longer mute. Then the word of Adonai came to me. Human being, those living in the desolate parts of the land of Israel are saying, Abraham was only one, and he inherited the land. But we are many, so how much more? Is the land given to us to inherit? Therefore tell them that Adonai Elohim says, you eat flesh with the blood, you raise your eyes with idols, and you shed blood, and you still expect to possess the land? You depend on your swords, you commit disgusting practices, and each of you defiles his neighbor's wife. You still expect to possess the land? Tell them that Adonai Elohim swears, as I live, those living in the ruins will fall by the sword. Those in the countryside will give to the wild animals to eat, and those in the fortress and caves will die of the plague. Moreover, I will utterly desolate the land. It will cease taking pride in its power. The mountains of Israel will be so desolate that no one will pass through it. Then they will know that I am Adonai. I have made the land utterly desolate because of all the disgusting practices they have committed. Now you, human being, your people are gathering and talking much about your walls and in the doorways of your houses. They're saying to each other, each one telling his brother, come, let's go. Hear the latest word coming from Adonai. So then they come to you, as people do, sit in front of you, as people do, and hear your words. But they don't act on them. With their mouths they flatter you, but with their hearts are set on their own self-interest. So for them you are like a love song sung by someone with nice voice who can play an instrument well. They hear your words, but they don't act on them. So when all this comes true, then, at last, they will realize that a prophet has been there with them.